I'm here with Brendan of Atreyu to talk about The End Is Not the End, the brand new record coming out very soon on outlets near you. And let me start off by saying this. I love the philosophical topic here in terms of the title of the record, The End Is Not the End. So if the end is not the end, what is the end?
I mean, I think the whole concept for the title, I mean, it kind of comes from a lot of the subject matter on the record too, lyrically, where it's the idea that I feel like there's everything in the world will try to end what you're doing. There's always things that seem like they're so final and seem like it's over, whether that be, a career or a relationship or health related, you know what I mean? And I think that it's sort of the notion that it's not over till you want it to be over. You know what I mean? I think for us specifically, I think there's been a lot of times in our career that people probably thought it was done. Maybe we went on hiatus, with member changes, this and that, and it's kind of like putting your flag in the ground and saying that it's not over till we say it is.
Is it difficult for a band like Atreyu to work over those doubts or to have doubts like that lingering around? Does that make your job more difficult?
I mean, absolutely. I think we're human, so obviously there's always the bit of doubt in your mind with certain things. But I think in our particular band, for one, we're best friends. I think we have all come to a place where we want to build each other up and make each other confident. And I think there's also like a respect and an admiration within the band that if any of us do have those doubts, it's usually pretty short lived because we're all very reassuring in what we do and confident in what we do.
When it comes to writing a new album, do you guys and working on a new record, the creative process and the creative roadmap that you guys take, how much of that is tied to the individual growth of the members of the band, and how much of that is tied to a vision that you guys have for what do you want that new record to be?
I mean, I think lyrically, a lot of it is directly tied to individual growth, and I mean, we all lyrically work on things together. So a lot of those topics and concepts come from things that have happened in our lives, and on this record more than any others for me specifically, very direct and specific things. Um, but as far as just conceptually figuring out our album, usually we're very much like a shoot from the hip kind of band. We get in the studio, and when we feel inspired, and it's just kind of like whatever's going to happen happen. I think there was a little bit more conversation this time around about sort of honing in and deciding like what are the things that make our band great. You know what I mean? To us, what are the reasons why we think we had success in the first place? What are the things that set us apart? Like, and sort of the non-negotiable pieces of the band's DNA. And once we sort of figured that out, it became clear what type of album we were going to make. You know what I mean? Like what the sound would be moving forward.
This album, you touched you mentioned a word there in terms of like the emotional experience of this record, the lyrics, the way everything comes across. When I was listening to the album, I felt like while not perhaps a super dark record, there is some darkness that lingers throughout the album, and I felt like
Mhm.
that darkness was kind of a result of the more emotionally connected experience that the album offers, not just from a lyrical standpoint, but also from the way you deliver your vocals and even the way the sound really works on this album. Everything to me about this record was about conveying an emotional experience. When you have an album that has that kind of backdrop, does that make it more draining when it comes to working these songs out, creating an experience that still will resonate with the listener and not necessarily overburden the listener?
I think, I mean, I don't know if I would say it's challenging, but like, I think for us, there was a little bit of us that sort of looked back into how we used to write songs in the beginning. Like, I feel like when we first started, this is also before we knew how to properly write a good song. We're just teenagers in a room gluing pieces of music together and putting them out. But there's something to that kind of adventurous side, and I think us sort of throwing the rule book out a bit to be like, like on All For You is arguably will be the big single on the album. Like, why is there a 15-second guitar tapping solo before the second chorus? And it was like, it feels cool there. Like we kind of threw out the rule book, like a song like Ego Death, where it's like this song doesn't repeat a single part once. It's 2 minutes long, and It doesn't make any sense, but it felt good when we were writing it. So I think like I said, throwing out the rule book a bit, like gave us a little bit of freedom and sort of like liberation in writing to where we didn't feel that sort of pressure of things being too daunting or whatever. It was just like letting them be what they were going to be.
Wake My Love, I'll Be Home Soon is my favorite song on the record.
Oh,
Like hands down, the moment I was listening to the album and that song came on, I had to actually play it again before
that's
I move
us.
on to the next track. Something about that song really connected with me, both from a lyrical standpoint, your vocal performance on that track. It's just a track that felt like it was written about me almost. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
felt like it was a very personal song to me, even though I had nothing to do with the track.
Mhm.
What is the background on that song, and why did I feel that way?
I mean, it's funny because I think that it's really great that you said that you kind of connected with that on a personal level. That's sort of the. It's funny how that worked out when we were writing it because we were sitting. We wrote the song in Tokyo, and we're sitting in the room. And we had this kind of idea, and we're writing the song, and we're writing the lyrics, and everything's coming out. And like halfway through it, in our heads, it was like, "Oh, this is a love song, right?" And about halfway writing through the writing, I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, this song, like I asked Porter, I was like, who are you singing to? Like, who are we singing to for you? And he was like, why? I think this is about my kids. I'm singing this to my kids. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'm singing this song to my wife. You know what I mean? And Dan was like, yeah, that's me too. And it was like, it was cool that like two dudes in the band that were in the same room writing the same song we're writing it about two different people, two different perspectives. And I was like, there's something to that I think will have a connection to people on a broad level where like a lot of different scenarios can connect to what the song's about. But it's funny that you say that about yourself. That's kind of exactly what we went through writing it.
Yeah, and the funny experience for me was that when I was listening to the song, depending on when I heard the song and the moment that I was in, sometimes I felt like it was me singing to someone, and sometimes I felt like it was someone singing to me.
Hmm.
Which is really
Absolutely.
strange because it's the same song, the same person, but it gave me two different perspectives. Uh, I don't know. And I think that's why I really connected with it because it allowed me to feel differently about it
Hmm.
depending on where my mood was when I heard it.
It's a beautiful thing. That's awesome. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's not many songs, I can tell you right now, not many songs have that sort of experience where you feel differently about it.
Hmm.
And it's still the same song and still the same person. So and I think that's one of the reasons why it resonated with me so much. Because it just really connects on a very personal level.
That's
Another
awesome.
really interesting track, I gotta say, it's Children of Light. By the way, when I was listening to the track on the record, I didn't know Max was on it. Uh,
Hmm.
I don't want to know anything about a record when I'm listening to a record. I want to come in with as much as an unbiased opinion as possible
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
I could really get into the album. So I didn't check anything about PR, who was doing nothing. That
yeah.
song comes in, I'm like, I recognize those vocals. That's Max is on an Atreyu track. Like, what's happening here?
That's
Like,
exactly what we said.
how did this collaboration come to be?
It was funny. I mean, it's I hate to use the word organic, but this thing kind of sort of just kind of materialized out of thin air. When we were writing Children of Light, I think it came out of my mouth specifically, but at least a couple of ours where it was like we started writing and it was like the initial idea for that song was me coming up with just the intro, bum, bum, ba, da, ba, da, bum, ba, and it was this kind of like drony tribal thing. And in my head, immediately it was like this is like an old school like roots Sepultura thing. You know what I mean? Like this is a Sepultura like primal feel thing. And and we wrote the song and we were just joking as we were recording it. We kept being me and Porter would talk about, oh, like I'll sing the first verse, you do the second verse kind of thing. And I was like, oh, we'll probably just have Max do the second verse. And it was like a joke where we're like, oh, we're just gonna call Max to do it. It's gonna be fine. And when we're in the studio and Travis, our guitar player, Sepultura is one of his favorite bands of all time. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna see if I can do something about this. And I texted our lawyer and I was like, don't you know Max Cavalera? And he's like, yeah, I'm really good friends with him and his wife. I was like, we have this track, we'd love him on it. Like, I think it'd be perfect. Like, old Sepultura was definitely like in our brains, in the spirit of this song. Like, could you send it to him just see what happens? I'm thinking like definitely not, because why would he? You know? And it was like 2 hours later. It was like, yeah, he's in and he'll send you the vocal tomorrow. And then I walked in the next day, and Travis was recording guitars, and I'm like, Max Cavalera just sent us vocals for Children of Light, and it was like a kid on Christmas morning, you know. But it's definitely one of those things where I love it because his voice matches so great with the song. It's definitely like a homage to that sort of Sepultura, old Sepultura sound. So he's perfect on it. But it's also like a legend. You know what I mean? You're in the presence of giants. And third, it's like, why would he? No, I don't think anyone would ever expect that. You know
No,
what I
I
mean? For
was
any
not
band like
expecting
this.
that going
Yeah.
in. Like I was shocked when I heard the song for the first time, and
Mhm.
I'm like, that sounds like Max, but it can't be. Like
Yeah.
on an Atreyu track, like do they even
Yeah.
know each other? Like, you know what I mean? Like those were all the questions going through my mind. And then the second time I went through it, I'm like, no, that's definitely him. So
Yeah.
now it's time for me to look into the press release to see what's going on because that's definitely Max on the track. I
For
think it
sure.
fits perfectly. The his part. If you take that part out of the context of the song, you think that's like either an old Sepultura track or
Yeah.
Soulfly,
100%. 100%.
which is freaking great. Like that is an outstanding track on the record, and I love the fact that you guys didn't fill this album with cameos. It's just that one, but it's the one that makes sense.
Max, I think, is strong enough to stand alone for sure.
And you guys standing right beside him. What a great track that is.
Thank you.
How was the album for you from a vocal standpoint? Was this a different record? Did you take any different approaches? How was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as a singer, I'm always, the goal is to always sort of beat my last effort, you know. Um, the difficult part about this was that my last studio effort was, I think the shining moment on my last studio effort was us covering an Audio Slave song. So like doing a Chris Cornell, my best Chris Cornell. So definitely like filling a high bar for myself, but always just wanted to do new things. I think for me, I really wanted to introduce my sort of heavier vocals into the mix and kind of reintroduce myself as like a heavier voice in the band too. Um, and it was really just sort of for me and Porter specifically, like finding a great balance again. I think one of the things that's always made Atreyu great is having is multiple vocalists, and me and Porter still kind of carrying that on. It's like finding the best way to really let us both shine, and not for the sake of I do this much and you do that much. It was just like wherever we sound best in parts, that's where you sing. Whatever's best for the song, that's where you sing. And that was kind of a big part of our motivation vocally. But just trying to step up. Trying to up the ante as a vocalist.
I thought you did a phenomenal job on the record. I mean, if I had
Thank
to pick like one shining light of this record, I think your performance throughout the album really captures the essence of the record, of the lyrics, of the emotions. I thought it was such a cool performance, top to bottom,
thank
from
you.
you on this album that really stood out to me. You were able to create images with your voice and the words and I thought that added to what the experience of this record is about, which is like I said, a dark record at times, but definitely a very emotional album. How much of your growth is tied into the growth of the band?
Um, I mean, I think all of our growth is tied into it. I think we all pour ourselves into every record we make, and I think we all are in the same sort of mindset of trying to just always do better and always be better. Um, I think a few albums ago too, we really started like came to a point of trust in the band where we all know how good each of us can be. So if there's a time where something isn't to that level, there's no shyness in being like, it's not like, hey, that wasn't good. It's like, hey, I know for a fact you can do better than that. You know what I mean? And I think we all know each other and trust each other enough that like we allow that conversation in the room that can be kind of a humbling and tough conversation to some as just a motivator to be like, well, I know for a fact that you know me like the back of your hand. So okay, I'll keep trying. So I think that it really comes down to all of our personal growth in the band is super important to how this album turned out.
Do you guys have those conversations before a new record cycle in order to maybe assess everything that you guys have done and learn from where you could be stronger, but also lean more on what makes you good and not necessarily allowing the things that you're weaker at to play a much bigger role or have a much bigger impact?
We usually didn't. This is the first time that we did, and I think that it paid off in spades because I think that the strengths of the band are have a spotlight on them, and I think the parts of us that we found maybe to be sort of mundane or boring just don't even exist anymore. Like, you know what I mean? They're just like, I think all the good parts to us at least are there, and quite frankly, I feel like, you know, with art, the creator has to be 100% happy, and that's really all that matters. Like the after effect is just a bonus of creating art, but like this is a place where I would say this is the first time in a minute where every single member of the band is 100% happy with everything, you know?
Is there a song on this album that you're like, when you guys were putting it together, you're like, okay, we can have this song on the record. This is a great song, but there's no way I can sing these lyrics. There's no way I can relive this story every single night when we're on the road.
I mean, I think on this record there's a couple songs specifically that I will, for better or worse, relive every time they're performed, just because, like, I mean, I said before, like this is the most specific uh, I've ever been as a writer. They like a lot of times we write from sort of a general emotion that, you know, oh, this happened to me and it made me feel this way. Oh, I relate to that. Let's write a song about that. And it's more so about a broad emotion and a feeling where like there's some songs on this album that came from like specific moments, specific conversations. You know what I mean? So like on this one specifically, Afterglow and also Break the Glass for me are those songs, like I say, for better or worse, because they're both like hard moments of my life, will be songs that I relive over and over and over again. Because like I said, there's moments of both of those songs that are very specific to things that I've gone through and conversations that I've had.
Are you in a place now in your life where you can handle that weight on your shoulders better than perhaps, I don't know, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, to go further, like Afterglow is about leaving my kids. Specifically, my younger daughter, when I went to make the record in LA, was having a really hard time. She kept waking up in the middle of the night having nightmares that I wasn't coming back. So like we'd have this daily thing where I'd have to convince her that I was going to come home one day, and you know we would have a thing where at night. You know, there's a lyric like "Don't worry, child, I'll meet you tonight in our dreams." Where we would like, she would be having a rough time at home, and I would be like, "It's okay, like let's meet up tonight in our dreams. Like, where do you want to go?" And she would reference, you know, "Oh, let's go to Disneyland. I'll meet you at the candy store on the corner. Then we'll go ride It's a Small World." And I'd be like, "Cool, I'll meet you there." And that was the one thing that we could connect and like make her feel better. Like I wrote that conversation into the song. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then like Break the Glass too is like in 2021, I had an accident where I fell on a glass, should have died. Cut my whole arm open, had surgery, still have like nerve damage. But this all happened in front of both of my kids, my wife and my mom. My oldest daughter cut her foot on the glass, had to go to the hospital too. And there's like direct moments of from my eyes of that situation that are in the song. So it's like, you know, obviously me and my daughter got through the phase of that of her not thinking I was coming home, and I'm still alive from the accident. So it's like, yeah, of course, I'm in a place now where I can live through those moments and feel better about them.
When you're writing these songs and you're writing these lyrics, you're doing without necessarily their input because they're not there with you. But at some point in time, do you bring them into the fold? Do you allow them to understand what you're going through and what you're writing about? Or you
Yeah, I've
keep
had
these
the
two worlds separate?
I think they're still pretty young where, you know, like Break the Glass. I don't think we haven't had that conversation because I think that whole, that moment was traumatic enough for them to relive. But you know, like I'll say things like Afterglow where it's like, hey, like I wrote this song about you guys. You know what I mean? And like they'll listen to the words and they can understand. You know what I mean? They'll get it. Like my youngest daughter got the dreams line, you know, it was like, oh, that's like what we say. And I'm like, exactly. You know, so I think depending, but they're very connected to the band and to the music and very involved and understand and love kind of what this whole thing is.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation the hiatus, band members change. What would you attribute? Is there one single reason why Atreyu is still going on strong, still putting out great records, still touring, massive following? What's the secret formula?
I just think all the things that we've been through, we you know you had to go. It's cheesy to be like everything happens for a reason, but like I feel like all the things we've been through, we wouldn't have been where we are now if we didn't do that. I think that our hiatus was due to sort of burnout. I think the deeper root of that burnout was realized later with member changes and you know I think that we all sort of are in a place now that we wouldn't have been had we gone through sort of the struggles we've been through. I think, you know, there's no failures, there's only lessons, you know what I mean? Is the kind of thing where it's like, um, we went on hiatus, and during that time, a lot of bands in our genre got bigger than us because we were gone. And it's like, oh, that's a bummer. So you have to play kind of keep up and do these things, but it's like, but if we wouldn't have gone away, it might have been over forever. You know what I mean? And it's like, doing with our lineup changes, there's, not a ton of people, but there are people that were upset about that. But it's like, well, it would have been zero if we didn't make those changes. So we have to like figure that out again. But I think, like I said earlier, about just having the internal sort of strength and trust and admiration within the band, those things would have never existed. Uh, and sort of the mental place that the band is in now would have never existed had we not gone through all those things.
Basically, just some growing pains,
Yeah.
which is an important aspect. I want to finish our conversation on a different, well, different, slightly different topic. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it was all for you, the video you guys shot in Iceland.
Yeah. Actually, we did both, All For You and Ego Death. We both shot in Iceland. You just can't really tell the Ego Deaths in Iceland.
Yeah, the other one you could tell, like the black sand beaches, which by the
Mhm.
way, a storm went through there, and those cliffs that you guys filmed are no longer there.
Yeah,
Those cliffs
it
with
was
the
like a week
steps.
after we left.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like a week after we filmed. Pretty wild.
Wow. You
Yeah.
guys got lucky then because you still got
Uh-huh.
to capture that beautiful scenery. I love Iceland. I'm actually going to go there in 3 weeks. I have some stuff happening there. I was there like 3 times last year or 4 times last year. How was that experience for you guys, and why did you pick Iceland of all places?
It was unreal. I mean, we just so happened to be in a situation where a gentleman by the name of Sean Stegemeyer, who's a brilliant director, he went to college with Porter. We've been friends with him forever, but he did a number of our videos back in the day. He did like Falling Down, The Theft. He did Lip Gloss and Black. He did a bunch of our videos back in the day, The Crimson. And he's gone on to do crazy things. He works for like, Sony in the NFL and has done Audi commercials, and he's a big time kind of dude. But he was just sort of like, oh, I want to do like something fun again. So we got him on board to do all the videos for this cycle. He has a crazy history with Iceland. He Years and years and years ago, there was that crazy volcano that
Yeah.
erupted for like a month, and at the time he was like, no one's getting good footage of this, so he flew to Iceland by himself and spent like a week and a half getting like time lapse footage of all of it, and it ended up being like the beautiful video you saw like all over the news and everywhere. And it like opened up this whole door for him in Iceland, and he's done a bunch of film projects there and everything. So he just knows the lay of the land, knows like the good spots to film. Has like a kind of a producer there that can help with things. And we are sort of in a. It's funny because it all came from a time crunch. We're like, shit, we need to film videos for these two songs. We all live in different parts of the world. Like, how are we gonna do this? And Porter was like, well, I was going to go to Iceland with my wife because we want to go see, there's like a whale watching thing she wants to go do. And they live in Germany. So he's like, I was going to go here in March, but why don't we go in January and just like go film videos? So he called Sean, said, hey, I was thinking about Iceland, whatever. He's like, done, say less, let's go. So we just all took our wives and went out there for about 4 days and just drove around the island and went to all the cool spots and filmed and went to hot springs and did the whole thing, and it was just kind of this whirlwind awesome trip that came out of nowhere, and turned into, I think, one of the most beautiful videos we've ever made.
Last year I went there in January and it was cold, dude. I went at the end of January because I went there to see Manowar.
Yeah,
The show ended up getting canceled. I mean, it's Manowar. I
yeah.
shouldn't be expecting anything else. So, anyways, but I still had a great time. But January is a rough time to go there.
There was times where we were filming, like especially the guitar players, where like we'd have to take breaks to like go to the car and warm up because they literally couldn't move their fingers. It was like, I'm frozen. This hurts. My head, I kept having to put on like a hood and a beanie in between takes because I kept feeling like I was having brain freeze, but like on the outside. Like my head felt like I was gonna shatter. So it was cold, but we braved through it, and I got a great video out of it.
I know. I
Two
was gonna
videos.
say the final product is amazing. Like, you know what I
Thanks,
mean?
man.
When I was watching the video, I was watching with my son, and the first second of the video, I'm like, I think this is Iceland. The
Mhm.
next frame, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely
That's
Iceland. Like,
Iceland. Yeah.
there's
It's
no
funny
other
because
place on Earth that looks like that.
no, it looks like you're on another planet. We were joking too. We're like, the whole time we were filming the video, we just kept going, AI slop. We're like, everyone's going to think this video is AI because why would we go to Iceland to film a video?
Honestly, I was blown away that you guys did, and now the fact
Thank
that
you.
you guys were there right before that whole landslide happened, that makes it even cooler.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I actually I've been there so many times and I never went to that beach, so I've never going to be able to have the experience that you guys had of seeing it, how it actually used to look like. So
Yeah, the place where Porter's filming his performance stuff on the beach. That's literally those are the cliffs that are no longer there.
yeah, yeah, those steps,
Wow.
it looks like steps on those stones.
Yeah, of
Absolutely beautiful. Brandon, thank you very much for your time, man. This was an absolute pleasure.
course, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All the
All right.
best. The album will be out in April, I
Mhm.
believe. Atreyu
Yep.
with The End is Not the End by like once again, I love the philosophical title of this record. So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Take care, man.
Have a good one.